Hello all of you, and today I am going to take up chapter 6, Tissues of class 9. Before I begin, I request all of you to please subscribe to my channel English and Science Zone so that you will get the notifications of my upcoming videos. We know that all living organisms are made up of cells. In unicellular organisms like amoeba, a single cell performs all basic functions like movement, intake of food, respiration and excretion. But in multicellular organisms, there are millions of cells. Most of the cells are specialized to carry out a few functions. Each specialized function is taken up by a different group of cells very efficiently. In human beings, muscle cells contract and relax to cause movement. Nerve cells carry messages. Blood flows to transport oxygen, food, hormones and waste material, and so on. In plants, vascular tissues conduct food and water from one part of the plant to other. So, cells specializing in one function are often grouped together in the body and are called tissues, which are arranged and designed so as to give the highest possible efficiency of function. Blood, phloem and muscles are all examples of tissues. Tissue, a group of cells that are similar in structure or work together to achieve a particular function, is called a tissue. Are plants and animals made of same type of tissues? Plants are stationary or fixed. They do not move. Most of the tissue they have are supportive, which provides them with structural strength. Most of these tissues are dead, since dead cells can provide mechanical strength as easily as live ones and need less maintenance. Animals, on the other hand, move around in search of food, mates and shelter. They consume more energy as compared to plants. Most of the tissues they contain are living. Let's look at the pattern of growth. The growth in plants is limited to certain regions, while this is not so in animals. There are some tissues in plants that divide throughout the life. These tissues are localized in certain regions. Based on the dividing capacity of the tissues, various plant tissues can be classified as growing or meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Cell growth in animals is more uniform, so there is no such demarcation of dividing and non-dividing regions in animals. Let's look at structural organization of organs and organ systems is far more specialized and localized in complex animals than even in very complex plants. Feeding methods. Plants are differently adapted for a sedentary existence on one hand, and animals adapt to active locomotion. Let's move on to the topic plant tissues. Plant tissues are of two types. They are divided on the basis of dividing capacity. They are meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. To understand this better, let's go to an activity. Activity 6.1. Take 2 glass jars and fill them with water. Now take 2 onion bulbs and place one on each jar as shown in the figure. Observe the growth of roots in both the bulbs for a few days. Measure the length of roots on day 1, 2 and 3. On day 4, cut the root tips of the onion bulb in jar 2 by about 1 centimeter. After this, observe the growth of roots in both the jars and measure the lengths each day for 5 more days and record the observation in tables. Look at the table, all of you. Now, from the above observations, let's answer some questions. First question, which of the 2 onions had longer roots? Why? The answer is the onion in jar 1 has longer roots, as the growth of roots continues in it due to intact root tips. Question 2. Do the roots continue growing even after we have removed the tips? The answer is the roots did not continue to grow in jar 2 after cutting down their tips. Question 3. Why would tips stop growing in jar 2 after we cut them? The tips of roots stopped growing in jar 2 because the tips of these roots were cut down and the tissues which helped in the growth of roots, that is the meristematic tissues, are removed from it. What do we conclude? The growth of plants occur only in certain specific regions. This is because the dividing tissue, also known as the meristematic tissue, is located only at these points. The meristematic tissues are classified as apical, lateral and intercalary. The apical meristem, it is present at the growing tips of stems and roots. Its important function is to increase the length of stems and roots. The lateral meristem is present on the lateral sides of the stems and roots. Its important function is to increase the thickness of stems and roots. The intercalary meristem is present at the base of leaves or internodes. Its important function is the longitudinal growth of plants. Let's go on to permanent tissue. The cells formed by meristematic tissue take up a specific role and lose the ability to divide and form permanent tissue. Let's go to an activity. To understand this better, take a plant stem and with the help of your teacher, cut into very thin slices or sections. Now, stain the slices with saffron. Place one neatly cut section on a slide and put a drop of glycerine. Cover with a cover slip and observe under a microscope. Observe the various types of cells and their arrangement. Now, on the basis of observation, let's answer some questions. Are all cells similar in structure? The answer is no. All cells are not similar in structure. We can see variety of cells with different shape and size. The next question, how many types of cells can be seen? We can see at least 10 different types of cells in the slide. Next question, can we think of reasons why there would be so many types of cells? The answer, yes, there are variety of cells so that each group of cell does a specific role in the overall growth of plants. Simple permanent tissue. They consist of only one type of cells. Types of simple permanent tissues are parenchyma. A few layers of cell form the basic packing tissue. This tissue is called the parenchyma. It consists of relatively unspecialized cells with thin cell walls. They are live cells. They are usually loosely packed so that there are large air spaces between cells. This tissue provides support to plants and also stores food. But in some conditions, it contains chlorophyll and performs photosynthesis. Then it's called Chlorenchyma. In aquatic plants, large air cavities are present in parenchyma to help them float, and such tissue is called parenchyma. The parenchyma of stems and roots also store nutrients and water. Now, the flexibility in plants is due to another permanent tissue called Collenchyma. It allows easy bending in various parts of plants such as leaves and stems without breaking. It also provides mechanical support and elasticity to plants. The cells of this tissue are living, elongated and irregularly thickened at the corners with very little intercellular space. Another type of permanent tissue is called Sclerenchyma. It's the tissue which keeps the plant hard and stiff. It is composed of long, narrow and thick-walled cells. This tissue is made up of dead cells and there are no intercellular spaces. Sclerenchyma cells are dead and are present in the husk of coconut, fibers of jute, in the veins of leaf and in the hard covering of seeds and nuts. Now let's move on to an activity. Activity 6.3. Take a freshly plucked leaf of Rio. Stretch and break it by applying pressure. While breaking it, keep it stretched gently so that some peel or skin projects out from the cut. Remove this peel and put it in a petri dish filled with water. Add a few drops of saffron in. Wait for a couple of minutes and then transfer it onto a slide. Gently place a cover slip over it. Observe under the microscope. Observation. The slide shows epidermal cells with stomatal pores as shown in the picture. On focusing on the stomatal pores under the microscope, we can see guard cells and the stomatal pore as shown in the picture. Conclusion. What we observe is the outermost layer of cells called the epidermis. The epidermis is usually made of a single layer of cells. It is also called as a protective tissue. It protects all the parts of the plant. Epidermal cells on the aerial part of the plant often secrete a waxy, water-resistant layer on their outer surface. This aids in protection against loss of water, mechanical injury, and invasion by parasitic fungi. We can observe small pores here and there in the epidermis of the leaf. These pores are called stomata. Stomata are enclosed by two kidney-shaped cells called guard cells. They are necessary for exchanging gases with the atmosphere. Transpiration is loss of water in the form of water vapor, and this also takes place from the leaf through the stomata. Epidermal cells of the roots, whose function is water absorption, commonly bear long hair-like parts that greatly increase the total absorptive surface area. Now let's go on to complex permanent tissue made of more than one type of cells, or such tissues are also called as the conducting tissues. The types of complex permanent tissues are xylem. Xylem conducts water and minerals from the roots to the different parts of the plant, composed of 4 different types of cells: tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. Phloem tissue. It conducts food material from the leaves to the different parts of the plant. It is composed of 4 different types of cells: sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fibers. Our next topic is animal tissues. Animal tissues are classified into 4 types based on the functions they perform. First, epithelial tissue. It forms the covering of the external surfaces, internal cavities, and organs of the animal body. Various types of epithelial tissues are simple squamous epithelium. They are formed of a single layer of thin flat cells forming a delicate lining. They are located in the lining of the mouth, esophagus, the lungs, and the alveoli. On the skin, epithelial cells are arranged in many layers to prevent wear and tear, and such cells are known as stratified squamous epithelium. Next, columnar epithelium consists of elongated or column-like cells. The location is in the inner lining of the intestine and gut. Its function is of secretion and absorption, and it facilitates movement. In the respiratory tract, the columnar epithelial tissue also has cilia, which are hair-like projections on the outer surface of epithelial cells, which pushes the mucus forward to clear the respiratory tract. This type of epithelium is called ciliated columnar epithelium. Next, cuboidal epithelium consists of cube-shaped cells. The location is in the lining of the kidney tubules and ducts of the salivary glands. Its function is secretion and absorption and provides mechanical support. Sometimes a portion of the epithelial tissue folds inwards and a multicellular gland is formed. This is glandular epithelium. The next type of animal tissue is the connective tissue. The cells of the connective tissue are loosely spaced and embedded in an intercellular matrix. The matrix may be jelly-like, fluid, dense or rigid. Let's talk about fluid tissue. Take a drop of blood on a slide and observe different cells present in it under a microscope. Blood has a fluid liquid matrix called plasma, in which red blood cells, RBCs, white blood cells, WBCs and platelets are suspended. The plasma contains proteins, salts and hormones. The function of blood is to transport gases, digested food, hormones and waste materials to different parts of the body. Next, skeletal tissue. Bone is another example of a connective tissue. Its functions are: it forms the framework that supports the body. It also anchors the muscles and supports the main organs of the body. It is a strong and non-flexible tissue. Bone cells are embedded in a hard matrix that is composed of calcium and phosphorus compounds. Let's talk about cartilage. Another type of connective tissue, cartilage, has widely spaced cells. The solid matrix is composed of proteins and sugars. Cartilage smoothens bone surfaces at joints and is also present in the nose, ear, trachea and larynx. We can fold the cartilage as it's very flexible. Next, dense regular connective tissue. Two bones can be connected to each other by another type of connective tissue called the ligament. This tissue is very elastic. It has considerable strength. Tendons. Tendons connect muscles to bones. Tendons are fibrous tissue with great strength but limited flexibility. Next, areolar connective tissue. It is found between the skin and muscles around blood vessels and nerves in the bone marrow. It fills the space inside the organs, supports internal organs and helps in the repair of tissues. Next, adipose tissue or fat storing tissue. It is found below the skin and between internal organs. The cells of this tissue are filled with fat globules. Its function is the storage of fats and also it acts as an insulator. Let's move to muscular tissue. Main functions of muscular tissue is to provide movement to the body. Muscular tissues are of three types. First, striated muscles or skeletal muscles or voluntary muscles. These muscles are also called skeletal muscles as they are mostly attached to bones and help in body movement. Under the microscope, these muscles show alternate light and dark bands, so they are called striated muscles. The cells of this tissue are long, cylindrical, unbranched and multinucleate, that is, having many nuclei. The movement of food in the alimentary canal or the contraction and relaxation of blood vessels are involuntary movements. We cannot really start them or stop them simply by wanting to do so. Smooth muscles or involuntary muscles, they control movements in the iris of the eye, in the ureter, in the bronchi of the lungs. The cells are long and pointed, spindle shaped and uninucleate, that is, having a single nuclei. Cardiac muscles. Heart muscle cells are cylindrical, branched and uninucleate. These are involuntary muscles, also known as cardiac muscles. Rhythmic contraction and relaxation of cardiac muscles help in the pumping action of the heart. Next topic, nervous tissue. Cells of the nervous tissue are highly specialized for being stimulated and transmitting the stimulus very rapidly from one place to another within the body. The brain, spinal cord and nerves are all composed of the nervous tissue. The cells of this tissue are called nerve cells or neurons. A neuron is a cell of the nervous tissue and consists of a cell body, an axon and a dendrite. An individual nerve cell may be up to a meter long. Many nerve fibers bound together by connective tissue make up a nerve. Nerve impulses allow us to move our muscles when we want to. The functional combination of nerve and muscle tissue is fundamental to most animals. This combination helps animals to move rapidly in response to stimuli. So, that's the end of the lesson. We'll meet again in the next session. Bye.